Talk to your data clear and bright. QInsights helps you do it right.
So welcome everyone to this webinar where I'm going to present to you QInsights. And the aim with our app is to get you out of that black box of AI-assisted analysis. So some of you have maybe also used those chatbots, and you're always kind of wondering where the answer is coming from. With QInsights, we want to get out of that to give you evidence-linked analysis for interviews, focus groups, and more generally speaking, stakeholder conversations. I have a very strong vision of where we can go with AI-assisted analysis, and that vision has a lot to do with AI-human cooperation, because I think we can truly get better quality analysis when we work together with AI. So we can work on our own. We can let AI just do its thing, pressing a button, AI does something, or something comes out. But the magic is in the middle, when you can bring your expertise and work together with the AI or with the AI assistant. Yeah, I've been analyzing data, for most of my career, and I know how to analyze, but I'm not an expert in all of the fields. So if you come from pharma, or you have a psychology background, or you have a background in the car industry, or whatever, there's lots of people do interviews in all kinds of areas. I'm not an expert in all of those areas. And especially now when it comes to analyzing data together with an AI assistant, we need to bring that expertise. It's about asking questions about our data, because now the AI can help us with the AI system, the LLMs can help us to directly interact with the data, and it's really about asking the right questions. And you see also on this slide, that we have a strong commitment to ethical and responsible AI, and that also relates to the way that the software supports working together with AI. So not letting the AI just decide whatever direction it is, but that you can always interact. With regard to that note, maybe also some new developments here that we are supporting, because more and more people in Europe are actually also calling for using something that is not only hosted in Europe. Certainly we are hosted in Europe. For the processing of the data, we use an OpenAI LLM, but we also able to offer a different option, and that is Mistral, because that is the European model that is getting up to par where all the other models are. So when we started QInsights, Mistral wasn't really, or I said, well, we wouldn't get really good quality analysis. So then it would also not be very convincing of what we can actually do with AI. But Mistral has been getting better. And if somebody says we actually prefer Mistral instead of an OpenAI model, we can also offer that. So what can you analyze in terms of data formats? Your Word document, PDF. We also support Excel files, and that means open-ended questions from surveys, or if you scrape some social media data, so you have social media comments in Excel files, so short form answers, basically. It doesn't have to be open ends from a survey, but short form answers. So we support that. And that can be anything from interview transcripts, observational notes, that what you see on the left-hand side. So the typical type of data that we get from standalone qualitative research. These are the 5 steps. I'm not gonna dwell on it very long. Of course, we need to prepare the project and create the project, and maybe there is a step 0 before that, because garbage in, garbage out. You do still need to prepare your data in a way that a computer can read that well. So you cannot just upload kind of anything. Like when I talk about Excel files, it shouldn't have company logos and whatever in there. It just needs to be a clean Excel files with clear column headers and then content, or with Word files with respondent identifiers. Because if the data is not well prepared, we try our best to read respondents identifiers, but if you have a good cleaned up data file, then the LLM then also can deliver higher quality results. So think about that. There is still that part of where you need to think about how to prepare the data. And we do describe all of that also in the manual to give you some ideas how data need to be prepared. You can add metadata in order then to do some comparative analysis. And then we have 5 analysis options. And then, of course, the discovery part after or while you're analyzing the data. And I will show you, in the app, all of these analysis options. And the project I'm focusing on today is a small interview study, and it's about the meaning of friendship. So I think with that, I leave the presentation here for now and switch over to QInsights. So this is the dashboard in QInsights, and you see a number of projects here, and I'm opening the one on the meaning of friendship. So this only has 4 interviews, but you can have, as mentioned, 10, 20, whatever interviews in there. There is something about the project size that you can analyze all at once. Well, you can analyze also 50 interviews at once. I wouldn't really recommend that, because if you push lots of data to an LLM, and even if the so-called context windows have become larger and larger, it used to be like very, very, very little, 4,000 characters. That was just a few pages. But then it became like 200 pages, 500 pages, and the Gemini models, they also kind of handle 1,000 pages at once. But even if an LLM can handle your 500 pages at once, what you get if you push all data through, you get like very high abstract of the high level, but high level in terms of summarized answers on top. So if you want detail, I always recommend to work with subsets. And this is where the variables or metadata are coming in. Yeah, so where you can define gender, region, whether people like chocolate or not, whatever. You might have some characteristics, how you want to describe your respondents, professional experience, whatever. That is up to you what you define. Very shortly, we are testing this right now. We call it data context. So we improve on the variable feature. And then also what we do, even though you can now distinguish between the respondent and the interviewer, we do kind of level that up. So you still will be asked to identify who are the respondents and who is the interviewer. Depending also, you might might say interviewer in your transcript, but depending on how you have prepared your transcript, how anonymized it is, well, you will have a chance to say that, and the respondent is then your data context. That's what you're going to see in the analysis and also in the quotes. And the interviewer is not cut out, because the interview question also is relevant. So the interview question will always provide the framework. So we're not cutting it out. It's going to be part of the analysis, but not when the results are produced. And sometimes if the interviewer is not really interviewing, but talking too much, sometimes you get that an interview says that much, and then the respondent says, at least then the LLM gets the context and is not just, putting out whatever the interviewer said as a result, but maybe just that one confirmation of the respondent, and then that's, of course, has a different, it needs to be interpreted in a different way then. So that's said about the data context, that directly on your respondent data, but also if you have PDFs, newspaper articles, can be in terms of types of newspapers, time, whatever. So you can use the metadata in that way. Then you can enter a project description. I would recommend half a page to 2 pages, something like that. That gives the LLM context. So that description that you always have in here will always go with every analysis and every prompt you do. So that also means if you run a theme analysis without any project description, that theme analysis will be different if you enter context information, because then the theme analysis will be focused on whatever you put in the project description. Yeah, so keep that in mind. Give the LLM everything it needs to know about your project. Yeah, sometimes, yeah, it's also people say that, then it's kind of like, yeah, it's so much in my mind, and I assume the LLM kind of knows that, or my AI assistant, by the way, we call him Q here, or it, for QInsights, so the assistant here is Q, that there is some magic, telepathy between you and the LLM. It's not there. So think about this as your assistant that can help you and can help you a lot, but it doesn't know anything about your project. So think about it like a colleague who's new to the team, and you need to give that colleague the necessary information so it can help you better. So that is said about the project setup, where we automatically create summaries. And I wouldn't call that an analysis, it's just a quick reminder. Also, maybe if you work in a team, you haven't done, all of the interviews yourself, or you haven't been with a project for 3 weeks or something because other things were more pressing. So you can, it's a quick reminder of, okay, what was it again in this data set. We also create a preview of every document, and it also has page numbers. So these might be different from your Word files, but you can ask for references. Specifically, you will see we provide references, but you can also ask in the context of your dialogue for references with page numbers. Then it will be those page numbers that are here. So you see here also the rules of preparing interview transcript. It doesn't have to be capital letters for the speakers, but you see the structure here: speaker name, colon, and then this is how we recognize the speakers in the text. We will see later where these previews are coming in. So if you have audio files, we do transcribe, and we use Assembly AI for that. And you can also look at our privacy page where it is also SOC. No, we are not yet SOC 2 certified, but that will also come at some point. But that partner that we're using for transcription is, so that means it's certified for handling sensitive data. In case, most people already have transcripts these days, but it is something you can also do here. So now we have, we have uploaded the data, we have maybe organized them and entered some metadata, and then you can select what you want to analyze. And now we got here the 5 analysis options. All analysis that you do is archived, and we can now directly go to the archive and look at how the different outcomes of the analysis look like. So you see here I've switched from a list view to a folder view, so you can organize all your analysis here in little folders. So, for example, for research question 1, you might have run maybe a theme analysis and you did a chat, and you can put it all in one folder, or you work in a team, and then we have here all Tony's analysis or the analysis of the various team members. You see up here we can share a project. So basically, I shared my project here with my co-founder, but you enter an email address of somebody who has a QInsights account, and then they get an email, and then they can accept the invitation, and next time they open their dashboard, they will see that project as well. So then from that point onwards, you can always see what the other person does in the project, and also what everybody else who's sharing the project is doing. So then the analysis is accumulating. The person that is sharing the project can change project description or remove documents, and the others that sharing, they can only add to the project. So you always can see then how many documents were in the analysis, or what kind of documents were in the analysis when the analysis was done. And now let me go to research question 1. So you see here, I have done 2 runs of the theme analysis. Let me go back quickly to that presentation. And to give you a bit of an idea from current slide. So this comes basically straight out of that paper that might, they might look slightly different, the graphic, but it's those 4 steps that or 5 actually, that I do describe in that paper, From Coding to Conversation. So it's now officially published and in the Journal of Qualitative Inquiry. Before it was preprint. So if you know that or you have that paper, it has a slightly different title now. And now you can also download the officially published version. So the framework I'm proposing how to analyze data is, well, step number 1, yes, get to know your data. Could be through reading the transcript, hopefully, but also reading through summaries or prompting more extensive summaries, but also the theme analysis. I park at step 1. The theme analysis is not like a final event. It's just still part of getting to know your data. And in step 2, we're starting the inquiry. We're starting to, I also call it sometimes interviewing the data. Now, together with the AI is there, the AI assistant is there to retrieve the information that we're asking for, because that's the reason why I don't have to code anymore. We can just ask questions, and the LLM can process the 400 or whatever pages we have and can pull out that information we are looking for. And that's also an important point, that you can, of course, also ask at some point for interpretation or for ideas. But the idea is really here to at first use it for the what, the descriptive part. Who is talking about what, where, and then why, and then maybe you come to interpretations later. So in order to be part of the analysis, you also have to query the data the same way when you started building up a coding system. You were not, straight up, you didn't know. I mean, you need to start from the bottom up unless you had a deductive framework, but you needed to build up the analysis. And also with the deductive framework, well, you start from the broad, and that's maybe a bit like here, but the themes coming out of the data. But we do start actually from the top now and then go into more depth. And then we go into that circle of asking questions. But let's go back to the app here and look at how a theme analysis looks like. And here we have mutual support, adaptability, and change. We have trust, cultural context, shared experience, friendship as chosen family. So maybe you can roughly remember a bit of those themes. And if we go back now, I'm opening up the second one. So we get here chosen family again, we get evolution, and we had something that's called a bit different, but we also had trust, shared interest, it was called shared experience. But we didn't have comfort in silence. And I can't remember now, like I said, the emotional support, where there was something similar. So we get some overlap, but we also get something slightly different here. There is something, a setting that normally you can, but right now you can also not influence in QInsights. We just said it. It's a temperature. And the temperature we set is 0.2. And the higher the temperature is, the more variability you get in the results. And if you do analysis with your general chatbot, well, the temperature is set to 0.7. Because it's a general purpose chatbot, so you should be able to do everything, from brainstorming to, all kinds of things. So people always also say, well, it's very unreliable, and every time you do it, we get a different answer. If you would set the temperature to 0 here, then the themes would be the same all the time. So it really has also to do with the settings here. But we want to give you some variability, so not just the most obvious ones, but something that is right and left. And the idea is here that you choose what you want to go with further. So this is a content landscape that you can start off to work from. And you can go into more detail. So as I said, we can get out of that black box and see where in the interviews the LLM got an idea for those themes. So that's why we get those previews, and now you see them back. And now we see where in the document, so that's, now comes another one here as well, where in the document the LLM got information from to produce that theme. It's not exactly the same as coding because the LLM is processing your interview in one go, and it doesn't have to, put it into little segments. So that's also why it is. It's kind of interesting because there's plenty of papers out there that force LLMs into coding. It's like they don't need to code data to come up with themes, and we see that again and again if people do descriptive coding. So there's different ways of coding, but if they basically describe with the code system what's in the data, when they run a theme analysis in QInsights, it's 80% or even more of what they get in their categories. So it's not the fine-grained stuff, but it's really the categories they get. So recently I did an onboarding with a team that had open ends, and they had 1,200 answers, so quite a long server with a lot of people. And you can imagine they were sitting there weeks to code those data. And a lot of people, when they start using QInsights, they also try to do some benchmarking, kind of like, oh, can you see what we get here? And, we did that by hand, so to see, also to become maybe more secure in what you get. And then when we were doing the onboarding, and he was like pulling up the Word document where he had the categories, basically. And he was also very surprised that even the wording was almost the same, because of course the wording came out of the data also from his type of coding, if you stay with descriptive coding. So LLMs can do that very well, but that's the level of the category. And it's called all themes when we talk AI. And like I said, if there's different ways of coding, but if you do descriptive coding, that's probably very much the same. But from there, we have to go to the next level. We now have to start asking, exploring, and going into more depth with some of those questions. You can, from the technical point of view, you can download all of this, and you also get the kind of the references here that the yellow highlights when you download the themes. You can ask follow-up questions. So the idea when we built it is that at every point in the software, you can interact with the data again. And so I have that interaction here. You're right when you're now thinking about there was no interaction to creating the themes. We also have been asked already to do that. That means that you can do influence, or you can add a little bit of focus before you run the theme analysis. Then you actually also can say something or prompt it. So you can also influence the theme analysis. It's not there yet, but it's also something that we have been asked to do, and we also agreed to do that. So the theme analysis can be your starting point to get a feel and an idea for the data. You can then pick a theme and go into more depth from there, or you can kind of say, okay, now I get a feel for the data, but the focus is a bit different in terms of our research question, and I start from that point. And here, friendship formation was not in the themes, but that was was relevant for the study. So that first dialogue is about friendship formation. And yes, just to give you an idea how you can then prepare step number one, so that because we want to get some structure, not just we chatting here and then the chat explodes and it has lots of topics in there. We do want to get some structure here because in the end we want to have a report. So we got the code, I called it the code swamp when we were still coding, when people had like 1,000 codes. And people called it the coding trap because it was so easy to code with Cactus software packages. And now it's so easy to chat. And so we also have to prevent the chat trap or the chat swamp. Yeah, we also need to organize the chats. And this is my proposal then, to think about, okay, what is the topic I want to explore or investigate? And then you think about questions that you can then ask your AI assistant. And again, look at the questions. They start with, what was the first impression? What were their common interests? Or I guess that I even have another question before, like, how did they meet the person that they later became friends with, and then ask for the first impression. So it's really built up from descriptive to then going into depth from there. And then the next topic was challenge that I explored, and here there were 3 questions with some follow-ups here to go into more depth. So to give you an idea how you can build up this analysis, so it keeps it keeps systematic or structured. It also, if you work academically, it's transparent. So you can tell somebody this is what we did. Yeah, instead of a code system, you can just give people, these are the 5 topics we investigated. These were the questions, maybe also some follow-up. So instead of the code system, you just give them that as a structure. And if you want more validity in that case, we of course can't do intercoder agreement analysis, but that not everybody was doing that. But if you are coming from that kind of traditions, well, if we have no codes, we can also do no intercoder agreement analysis, but we can give a second person that set of questions and say, do a chat with those questions and see what you get. And maybe you have different follow-up questions based on what comes out than your colleague. Same as if 2 different people code, they see different things. And then you also say, now we have the challenge dialogue, and we have another, set of questions for all these different topics. And then you can later compare the synthesis of that dialogue. So now we have the friendship formation dialogue. So it's a pretty long one, so it takes a while to load. Let me just move up that dialogue. You can continue the dialogue at any point in time. So this is a dialogue that sits in the archive now. So if I wanted to continue it tomorrow, I could do that. Yeah. Or if you work in the teams, or another team member can also then, take this dialogue and ask further questions if they wanted to. So you see here, I actually started out with how respondents describe how they first met. I can maybe increase it a little bit. And then I get an answer. And the answer is not always the same structure, but the more you prompt and ask the LLM how you want to have it, then the more you guide it, and then it will kind of follow your guidance. If you just ask a question and don't specify the output, it will just do something. And in most cases with interview data, it will give you a response per person. But if you don't want that, then you can also just ask that in a different way. So here he met him in history class, and then it's also a bit advisable to read a bit above and below. But we are now led to that part in the interview where he talks about meeting his friends. And of course, this is all at the very beginning of the interview. Yeah. And sometimes it takes a bit to load, because that was the first question that was asked in the interview. Well, now it's about the first impression. Then I ask, then you see what you get here with the 4 respondents. And now actually it was just 1 sentence about Trevor. So I said, well, give me a bit more information about that. And then you see you get also about half a page, if you put that into a Word document, about Trevor. So that, remember what I said at the beginning, if you ask about 50 interviews, you get like very abstract answers. Same, this is just 4 interviews, but you see the difference already. If I'm just zooming into 1 respondent, I get much more detail. And you can also then ask for direct quotes if you want to have them directly in the chat. So the yellow highlights is more a bit for you to validate, but you can of course certainly ask for direct quotes as well in the chat. So I ask also for Alexander, and then I said I want to go now ask for all respondents again. asked for shared interest, asked for activities that strengthens their bond, evolution of activities over time. Then I ask about, then also barriers and facilities of friendship. And then I wanted kind of a summary of that dialogue that I had so far per person. So I give it a prompt of what I want to have in this summary essay. And it's called it then the friendship journey of Shahisa. And then I use the same prompt for the next person. So I get like 4 comparative summaries. So you see also here the way you can guide the LLM. Yeah, if you just ask for, just write a summary, the LLM does something. It's your role to guide the LLM into what you want in the output. And yes, there is also that, you might have heard about that, the sycophancy effect, and of course here it's kind of, we do want, in that case we do want the same the summaries on this topic of friendship formation, and I said it will follow that, but it will always follow it. If you ask a question that is leading in a certain direction, yeah, and as qualitative interviews, we all know about leading questions, and you see the similarities in interviewing somebody and interviewing new data. It's kind of the same thing. That if also in the sense the behavior of the LLM, and then that has to do with the training, the way it was trained with reinforcement learning, it will follow you suit. But you can get out of that if you start also go into interpretation more, that you have an hypothesis and you want to test it. You can also do that in dialogue very nicely, but the LLM will kind of follow you, so you have to challenge it. So the LLM will not challenge you. It will not kind of say, well, that's a dumb idea, you should look at this and this and this. It's you who has to say, okay, now this is an hypothesis, now the counter hypothesis would be this. Do you find evidence for that in the data? So it's always you who needs to guide the LLM and also ask it maybe for the opposite, and in order also to challenge your ideas. But it won't challenge your ideas by itself. It's asking for you to ask the questions. So what you see here is asking for similarities and differences to pull that out, to start synthesizing the dialogue. And here I'm asking also for unique perspectives. So you see the idea is to start broad and then already starting to synthesize the dialogue. You can also end up with some tables here. And the more, again, how you describe what you want to have in the table, and you can say, draft a table based on our conversation, then the LLM will do something, but you can precisely say what you want to have in the columns, what you want to have in the rows and in the cell, maybe a quote or a summary or whatever, and then it will provide you an overview at the end. If you're academically oriented, here I just ask it how this can be related to theories, and then of course it comes up with theories it knows from its training data. So what it shows here, you can also draw on that external knowledge as well, depending on your question. But if you ask a question about your data, like the 4 interviews I have selected here, the answers will always be coming from your respondents. That is a special, it's called a rack system. So that is where this is built around. And that means the answers will always come from the data you uploaded. And that minimizes hallucination. I wouldn't say it's, wouldn't say it's 100% gone, but that's why you also need to be part of the analysis. Some people sometimes report, well, it's making up quotes. And my explanation also for that as well is not necessarily, making up completely, but it might be paraphrasing. And that can also happen if you asked about your 20 interviews at once, that it might not give you the exact quote, but it gives you a paraphrase because you have been throwing so much data at it. So it wasn't able to track all of the data at once. If you just pull out, fewer interviews or what very specific quotations that pull up just one interview, and you get your direct quotes directly from there. So that can happen. It could also be a language problem. We had some cases where it was mix of English and Indian English, and it can also be those kind of cases where it's more paraphrasing than giving you direct quotes. Yeah, but it's then also up to you to kind of call it out and say, well, also maybe think about, maybe I threw too much data at it and it wasn't able to handle it. Or to just ask again for a direct quote, or look up the data in the with the yellow highlights. So now we have a chat here about one topic, and yeah, it's already in the archive. And oh, my time is always running. So you see here, I have here only one chat here for challenges for the second research question for sustaining long-term friendships, and the fourth one was the role of cultural factors. But you could do other analysis as well, and I'm going to show that quickly as well. The grid analysis is something that people have been doing kind of manually in Excel tables. So you ask questions here about maintaining friendship, you get a summary answer. You can probe it differently if you want a table or a longer answer, more detail or whatever. You can prompt your summary yourself. So at first it's kind of giving you a summary, but then you can interact. And then let me zoom out a little bit. So you see that it gives you a response per person. So you get a summary response per person, gives you a very quick overview of what's happening in all the interviews and also in focus groups, for example. And then you get direct quotes here in the references. That these are summaries. Here you get the quotes. And if you want to dig deeper, you have your chat here. You can interact again, and then you also get your references with your yellow highlights. It's called grid because you can build it up by then practices of expectations and so on. Let me quickly, this because it's from the archive, and I think we did already change that also from the archive you can extend it. Show you how that works when you, so these are the grids I already have. And you can start a new grid. So if you have grids on, on different topic areas, so you see the plus now here. So now I can enter a new question and I add to the tabs here. And you can double tap and give each tab a name, and you can export that in an Excel spreadsheet, either just one of the tabs or the full session, and then you get these different sheets in Excel. And whatever you see on screen, you will get here in Excel if you export it to Excel. The conversational analysis that you saw here, I would just try it out yourself. It is basically what I've been showing you, what I've been doing myself, going from broad and then asking some questions I have prepared. What it does in the guided analysis, it will ask you for a project description. It will ask you for which topic you want to explore, which topic you want to go into depth with, and then it will actually suggest you those questions. So that I had in my PowerPoint. So you don't have to think about what are the questions I can use to dig deeper. It will suggest questions. LLMs are quite good in helping you to ask questions. So if you ask them to do so. So this guided analysis will kind of take you at your hand and walk you through it. And it's probably also a fun way of doing it and exploring it. You may do this just to get to know how this conversational style works, or keep on doing it. But that has a bit of an educational component to it, to learn how to do analysis without coding. And I need to switch project now to show you the last option that has not, and just show you very quickly, even though the focus here is on the interview analysis. If you have semi-structured data, then we do a sentiment analysis. We don't do that for interviews because we have no meaningful analysis units. But here we can analyze each answer and give it the LLM does it give an evaluation. So here you have the typical positive, neutral, or negative. Maybe you find another one in the archive here. So maybe I'm lucky that here. So you can also use different dimensions. So the positive, negative, neutral we needed to do in the past, that was machine learning. Now you can do emotional, irrational, disappointment, exciting. Whatever dimensions, can also be more than two, are relevant for your study. And then again, you can go and ask more follow-up questions. But just to show you the fourth option here that we have. So now we have done all the chats, and yes, it's time for report writing. That is not yet implemented here, but I have some ideas already how to do this. And that also has to do with something we couldn't have implemented a year ago. It's also something that technology, also LLM technology, moves further and further, and we can do more and more exciting things here. And so here I have my research questions. So I would basically then, when I start writing a report, kind of say, okay, this is friendship formation. Now I have to write a synthesis and make sense of it. Because again, when you have your coding was always like, half of the analysis done, because then we had to work with the coded data and then to come to our report writing. Same is here. You start, you chat, and that's part of the, one step in the analysis, but then you have to work with that. So you obviously also need to take some time after the chats to kind of read through your chats, and maybe if the themes is part of it, or grid, whatever you all have done to analyze one theme, and then starting to write your synthesis. And now I go back to this here. So that is step number 4, and you can start writing a synthesis after each of the chat that you have done, or each of the sets of analysis you have done to answer some research question. And if you have more than 4 interviews, that might be a good idea, because that already then informs maybe the next step. So then you've learned something about the data, and then you start exploring the next topics that can inform it as well. So that report is actually from another study, in case you wonder. And just have that slide. So what I want to show you now is something that hopefully also not in long distant future we also want to implement in QInsights, is at the end of the chat that you can also visualize your findings. So I did that now outside QInsights, but the LLM technology is here. And I talked about, how we get from the chats to a storyline. So that can also be, one first way. At the end of the chat, you asked the LLM, maybe with the input of your ideas, like, maybe we saw the theories there, which theory apply to which explanation, that you can also get a nice visual around that. You can create your story. And this is Nano Banana, and that's probably also what we're going to implement, because that's that might also change with over time. That's something we cannot use Mistral for, because they don't have that capability. But these things change also as model development change. But to also give you an idea that QInsights is also growing along with whatever becomes possible with LLMs. So here we have the cultural aspects here that are represented, and from the data as part of the analysis, and then there would be the report around it here as well. But I just wanted to show you kind of compressed what could come out at the end of the chat, that when you synthesize your data, that is what can come out here, that the friends are like, you're like a brother here, or the chosen family, or the continuation of connections over time. And so hopefully you can kind of see that this is, of course, the compressed version of it, and in your report you would attach quotes to it, and you have an explanation for all of this. But this is how it can be synthesized, and also what LLMs are capable of doing in terms of visualization. And this is all a challenge component, the whole challenge conversation, and what can come out of there. And that is a whole summary of all of it, that how friendship can evolve over a lifespan, and how LLMs can actually help you. And that might be not something that you include in the final report, but that might also be just something, again, that makes you thinking, and you look at that visual and think, well, I don't see it like that. you are in charge of the analysis, and that might just be irritating you and thinking in a different direction, or thinking, oh, let's now take a look at the data again. So I see the toxic dynamics of trust breach. So what is actually behind it? What are the stories behind it? That, especially in the Shazia interview, where she talks about this, and then you have the data to back it up. So I stop sharing now, and we are probably almost out of time. But yes, I'm open now for questions that you want to ask. So we do rent service space. So and it's also, I think it's safer than having a server in the basement. Yeah. So we do rent service space that does give you the security and has the certificates that you also need depending on which country you are in. So the ISO certificates are for Europe and HIPAA and SOC 2. These are American type of certificates. So you see that what I'm trying to visualize. So we rent a space in a data center. So of course we access that via the cloud, and it's actually not just one fence around, is actually double encryption. So, around that space where QInsights lives, you have double encryption. You have your own space when you have a QInsights account. It's your data, and you also can have multi-factor authentication. So when you create a password, so of course that should be secure, but then you can add on top of that multi-factor authentication. So each data is, of course, it's kept separately from all of the users. And the LLM that we are using, that is where data needs to be sent for processing. So there's a number of things that are going on our own platform. If you ask a question, it's going to be sent to that LLM for processing, but that LLM lives in European server because we are a European company. That is important. And the data is processed in Sweden in our case. So that's how the privacy setup is done. See the differences if you use whether it's OpenAI, ChatGPT, Gemini, or Claude. You see also the different security layers here. And with the Copilot thing, you kind of sit on the enterprise subscription, but the best, the highest security you get with an API connection. The processing in the cloud is already very secure from a technical point of view. With an API connection, you get something on top because there is a key that we have at QInsights that we send with your request. And as we have a service provider contract with where we're working, there's a second part of that key, and only if those two keys connect. And so that is the next level of security. That's why API connections are on top, security on top. And of course, when you use a chatbot, I'm saying that because we always ask, how we are different from chatbots. You sit on a server of the provider, and that data is not encrypted there anymore. So that is about that. And then you did ask about prices if you want to test it, and go onto our website. If you go try for free, you get to the registration page. And by the way, when you register, then you also get some onboarding emails. So if you register, everybody gets 1 million tokens. That allows you to play with 3 or 4 documents and try out all functions. I'm saying 3 or 4 documents with you upload, 20 documents to 3 theme analysis. Theme analysis takes most of the tokens, and you probably run out. So this 1 million tokens are there for you to try out all options and see how it feels for you. And then if you want to purchase the educational price we have 6 months and 12 months licenses. I give you the 12 months price now. It's 490 euro for the educational price, 899 for non-profit. So any that probably would apply to you, and 1,400 euro for if you're a for-profit organization. If you do analysis and sell it, that's a for-profit.
Talk to your data clear and bright. QInsights helps you do it right. safe and steady side by side. Your research partner always on your side. Talk to your data clear and bright. QInsights helps you do it right. Safe and steady side by side. Your research partner always on your side.